right, welcome everybody. How are you all after a 3-day holiday? All delirious. Just like I am, waking up on a gray morning. I'm here today with Jeff Driskell, and he is the owner of the Sandler training company down in Leaf Summit.
Right.
And so he's going to teach us how to network in our network. So take it away, Jeff.
All right, thanks. You know, this past weekend, my wife and I were, we've got college-age kids, so we got away to the plaza for the weekend, you know, and we were sitting at Potbelly Stove, and across the street is the Apple store, and we were watching the Apple display because the Apple displays in the front window were opening themselves, and one would open and the other one would close, and we were just looking at that, kind of like, that's pretty cool. We didn't see that doing that yesterday, and she says, I wonder where they came up with the name of Apple, you know, and you think about the genesis of companies, you know, and I'm a member of the Leaf Summit Chamber. We've got a new company that's opening up. Matter of fact, we're doing the ribbon cutting for it this week called Frontier Justice. I don't know if you've all heard of it. What a unique combination of gun range, gun sales, fashion, Western fashion, and a restaurant. But I think you guys got the cake taken here, you know. You missed this. New business was born, idea was born right here this morning. Pet adoption, all right, that will transfer ownership in 2 years to a new family, and then when they get to the end, they're going to cook it up. And it's, I mean, you know, it was just right here, you know, I was witnessing the birth of a new company. So it was exciting to see that happen, but, you know. No, you don't think? Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys braving the elements to get in here. I was coming in from Leaf Summit, and it was really snowing. And I was concerned because 470 was already backed up going west. I mean, it looked like a parking lot. And so I was like, oh, great, I'm going to be late getting here this morning. But, I turned off of 470 onto Woods Chapel. It's like the snow stopped. I was like, wow, this is all right. So, well, we'll have to talk about that one later, Pat. So, but I'm glad that you all were able to get here today. Laura and I talked several months ago about me coming and doing one of the Power Hour sessions. We talked about several different topics, and networking was the one that she felt would be appropriate for this time of the year, and that it was one of the subjects that the chamber members had expressed interest in. So we're going to talk about networking today, but we're going to talk about effective networking versus not working. Okay? We're also going to talk about the number of networks that you actually have, and some of them that we're not even aware of that we can tap into. And we've got to build credibility and value within our network. And how do we do that? And how do we grow our network in that manner? You know, and I hope to learn some things from you as well. Okay, I'm one of those guys that I don't like standing up here doing all the talking. And I obviously missed the memo that the hot spot to sit was in the back corner back there, which is completely off camera. So I think that might be the reason for that being the hot spot. Usually when I have an opportunity to speak with a group, I like to come away thinking that I gave you a few new ideas that you had never heard of and were completely different. I'm likely to maybe talk about something that you're already aware of and are doing, but I may be able to put a different slant on it or let you see it in a different light. There's a really high probability that I'm going to say something here that you're going to completely disagree with, and that's okay. That's okay. That if you don't like something, that's good, you know. But at least you thought about it enough to say, I don't like it, you know, and figure out why you didn't like it. But ultimately, when we leave here today, the next networking event that you go to, I hope that you're going to be and feel more successful as you are working, trying to work with people within the chamber, okay? So we're all members of a chamber. As I said earlier, I'm a member of the Leaf Summit Chamber. You guys are all members of the Blue Springs Chamber. But it's always interesting to me to hear why people join the chamber. So Why did you guys join the chamber and become a member?
Networking opportunity to get to know people in your community.
Okay.
With the same mindset, business mindset as you.
Okay. All right. Hey, good morning, Lisa. Any other reasons that you joined the chamber? Summed it up? Okay. All right. Well, you always hear, I'm joining the chamber because I want to become active in the community. I want to increase business. I want to create an awareness of my business. Oftentimes we hear, I want to increase my sales, So we have to look at why did we all come in to the chamber. It's obviously for our business purposes that we came here. So tell me, what are you doing currently as a chamber member that is networking? Or what are you doing to network? Lisa?
Every time I go to a chamber thing, I feel like I'm networking. No matter what I'm doing, committees, events, ribbon cuttings, it's all networking.
Yeah. It's going to all the events, isn't it? And whether it's the before hours, the after hours, something like this that's an educational activity, whether it's a ribbon cutting, a luncheon, any of the committees, as we are there and as we are being active in the chamber, all of that is part of networking. But I'm wondering, how successful do you feel about your networking? And that's always an interesting question, because I'm a member of the membership committee in the Lee Summit. And I often hear people, as we call them, at 3 months, it's interesting to hear what they say versus 6 months before their renewal. And it isn't always 6 months of the first year. Sometimes it's 6 months before their renewal and it's year 5 or it's year 3. And so as I've made those calls, it has been interesting to hear what people say about the chamber. That 3-month call, yeah, the chamber's great, I'm doing all this, I'm here, I'm there, everything's good. And then as they progress, you start hearing other things. Well, I don't know if I'm going to renew my chamber membership. And you ask them, well, why aren't you? Well, the chamber's not working. What does that mean? It's not working. Well, I haven't seen any growth in my business. Really? How is that? What are you measuring, or what are you looking at, or why do you feel that? But it's always interesting to hear them talk about, why they're not sometimes feel they're being met. And I typically will go, well, tell me what you're doing. What events are you going to, and how are you doing that? And I go to these events, and I go there and I get a cup of coffee, and I talk to 1 or 2 people, but it's always the same people that I know. And I said, interesting. And of course, I'm not going to give them a lesson over the phone, because that's not the appropriate time or place for that type of call. But that's just it. So many times, if you go to an event, you watch how people interact. They will line up with people that they already know, and they'll stand there and they'll talk to those people. And then they wonder why they aren't networking, or why they aren't growing their business, or why they aren't meeting more people within the community. The reality is we have to do more than that when we go to an event. It's not just about showing up. We actually have to have a plan when we get there. The goals, and I often ask the question that I asked you and the question on the phone, what are their goals? And the interesting thing is I hear them say things along the lines, I want to establish, and build relationships with people within the community. Absolutely. That's the purpose of the networking. I need to build trust. Absolutely. That's the purpose of networking. And then I hear them say something like, well, I want to sell. Absolutely. That's not the purpose of the networking events. Okay? We're not there to make a sale. Okay? We're there to identify suspects that may become prospects that could eventually become a client. Okay? But when we're there, we're still trying to identify people that we don't know and that we have a possibility of perhaps doing some business with in the future. Because the reality is, typically, your customers and clients, 3 things have to occur for them. First, they have to know you. Second, they have to like you. Third, they have to trust you before they are going to buy from you. So those are the things that we're really working to start building when we're at a networking event. Now, when you go to a networking event, and this is always an interesting question that I ask, what are your plans when you go there? Well, I always hear, well, I want to meet new people. Okay, so how are you going about doing that? Well, I'm going to collect as many business cards as I possibly can. Is it a contest to see who gets the most wins? Is that what it's about? That hand raise is a contest? Of that, okay, yeah. The reality is that we have to have a strategy when we go to a networking event, and we really have to set a goal. Depending on what the networking event is, if it's an hour long, your goal probably is going to be 2 or 3. It may be one, that card that you want to come away with, that person that you had a conversation with, that person's company that you may have found out that could potentially be a prospect. And notice I said potentially be a prospect because they're still in the suspect range at this point in time. So we have to be very strategic about going in, and we're not there to sell, as I said earlier. So when you go to a networking event, as I said, I hear people say, well, I go there and I talk to the people that I know. Well, that's great, but part of your plan is to find out new people. How do you do that? All right. First of all, do you know who are going to be at the event? All right. Laura, do people register to come to the events? So my guess is there's a list of who's going to be there, at least who's registered to be there. All right. So you've got a pretty good idea of who could be there from that list. You've been to an event before. You start seeing a lot of the same faces and the same people that are there. So who do you need to meet? All right. Now here's the thing that some people don't realize, or at least they forget about when they walk in the door. Everybody that is at a chamber event is there to meet new people. But yet when they walk in the door, that insecure high school person that stood along the wall comes out in all of us, okay? There's strangers in here, stranger danger, we get a little nervous. So how do you overcome that? Well, if you are not the kind of person that can just walk up to someone and introduce yourself to them, okay? Well, we can work on that too, all right? But who do you know that's in there? All right? And who can they introduce you to? And ask them for that introduction. But here's the other piece to it. Who can you introduce them to? Because networking is not just this one-way conduit, that it's all about me and bring it to me. And that's the other thing that too many times I hear people at the chamber, and I talk to them, they say, well, the chamber really isn't working for me. I'm not getting any leads. Really? And how many have you provided to someone else? Because a lot of times you have to give something in order to get something in return. Again, that's part of that trust relationship that we're working to build. So can you find someone in there that you do know, that you can at least talk to initially to get warmed up, and then ask for an introduction? Hey, do you know, Laura, do you know Chris? Could you introduce me to Chris? Because I'm a little intimidated by Chris because I know he works with big dogs all the time. And so, something as simple as that, working to get somebody else to help you out. That warm introduction is always nicer than just the cold walking up and sticking out the hand and introducing yourself. All right? When you do that, though, you got to be ready for the 30-second commercial. And too many times I hear people say, so what do you do? And then it's like the floodgates open. And there's some very graphic ways that we can describe what you're doing, but typically their socks get very dirty, okay? Because you're throwing up all over their shoes, all right? Because they just gave you the license to talk, and that's all you're doing. So then what do you know about them? Little to nothing, because we're very comfortable talking about our favorite topic, ourselves, all right? But in reality, we need to know about them. So it's very easy to give a 30-second commercial, but the last thing of the 30-second commercial, regardless if it really took you 30 seconds or 3 minutes to get through it, is a question back to them so that they can start sharing information with you. And make sure that you have some prepared questions that you're comfortable with. How did you get started with a dog obedience program? You know, that's amazing. You know, you start asking questions that are very typical, but it begins opening up that ability. And you're listening to them, okay? I sat at one of our events in Lee Summit, and I actually watched one lady walk up, very professional and very assertive, walk up and introduce herself to a person and hand that business card. And as soon as she got the business card back, she had asked an obligatory question. You know why I thought it was an obligatory question? Because as he was answering her question, she's looking around and I'm like, why do you have his card? He is never going to take your call. All right? If I'm going to ask you a question, I at least have to have the courtesy to listen to your response, because guess what? It's going to give me information that I'm going to be able to either decide, do I want to have a further conversation with this person and follow up with them, or you know what, it's been great meeting you here today, but I don't see us having a real connection going further beyond this. You know, maybe we can work together on a committee sometime together. Okay? Now, the interesting thing is we've got this network out here, we call it the Chamber. But here's something else. We've got a bunch of other networks that sometimes we just don't acknowledge. So I thought if I could give you 6 new networks, you probably know about them, you probably are using them, but you've never defined them and really thought about how do I develop them? How do I grow those networks? So the first one is what I refer to as the benefit network. All right? When you make a sale or you do business, who else benefits? Who do you buy your supplies from? Who do you rent space from? Who do you drop off materials to? And make that list. Write those people out, because those are people who are benefiting as a result of you doing business. And so that's a network that we can tap into. The one that always brings smiles to people's faces is called what I refer to as the jealousy network. All right? Who does business with people you'd like to do business with? And who else is on their client list? Or who is your competitor and who are their clients? Now sometimes I saw in one of the young professionals meeting, I saw 2 guys from the same company and I saw them look at each other and I said, you can't take each other's customers. All right? Just because you like who his customers are, all right, you can't take them, but who are the businesses that are on his client list? I'll bet you there's probably another dozen businesses just like that that are not on his client list. So what else, where else can you look using people who you compete against or people that you know that you would like to be working with some of their same clients, if it's not a competing type of situation, or that a similar client may be appropriate. Now this one is the real easy one, they like me network. It's your they like me network. Why do they like you? Because you've actually referred business to them in the last 6 months, or maybe in the last year, that you've actually referred clients to them or prospects to them. So they like you. So how can they help you? And the opposite of that one is the I like them network. All right? I like them network because they've referred business to me. So how can I develop that? How can I be specific about who it is that I want to work with there? Now this one is the one that from the chamber seems to be the most common one, the next one. It's called the Alliance Network. All right? Who do you know that has services or products that complement your service or product? All right? It's not a competitive thing. It's not necessarily that they benefit from you, but because of your product, it goes hand in glove. You always see the realtors, the mortgage officers, and the inspectors in a strategic alliance. All right? But what business could be your strategic alliance? Now, sometimes you have to sit and think about that one a little bit, because who is it that you could really pair up with? I love pairing up with marketing firms. All right? Why marketing firms? Well, you know what? It's always been my experience that the marketing firms can generate leads. They can make your phone ring. But what you do when you pick up the phone, that's called sales. All right? Marketing ends when the phone rings. And when you pick it up, that's when sales begins. And too many times, you'll hear people say, well, we got crappy leads. Really? Do you know how to work those leads? And then that's where I can come in. So that's a strategic alliance for me. And then the last one, which seems the most obvious, but unfortunately many times is overlooked, it's your client network. Look at your list of clients today. Who could they refer you to? Because let's face it, 20% of the people that you know that are in any of your networks will never, ever refer anyone to you. It doesn't matter what you do or how many times you ask, they'll never refer to you. 20% of your clients, or 20% of the people that you know in your networks, they will refer somebody to you and you never have to ask. It's the 60% that we have to work on. That's at 60% that we have to identify which network are they in and where are they coming from, and ask them for something. Ask them for referrals. Because oftentimes people don't know who to refer to you. And here's the other interesting thing. This is what I refer to as stronger referrals. Numerous studies have been done, and they all land just about in the same plus or minus range. All of us know about 250 people. Now, when I say know, I'm not talking about your LinkedIn network that has 500 plus people in it, okay? You don't know those people, okay? At least not all of them. When I'm talking about the 250 people that we know, these are people that we can actually reach out to and they will take our call. Or if they don't take our call, they will return our phone call if we have to leave a message, or they will respond to our email. So when I say that's who we know, that's what I'm referring to. Now, if you would identify 5 to 10 people that are in that group that you feel very comfortable with, think about who those people would be. They know 250 people. So suddenly we have, if it's 5, we have 1,250 people. And if it's 10, it's 2,500 people that we could get a personal reference to. Now, let's face it, not all of those people are going to be prospective clients for us, but how many of them could be prospective clients for us? And if they are, the fact that I'm getting a warm introduction to them because somebody I know knows them and can recommend that I have a conversation with them, and that at least gives me the entry to sit down and maybe have a cup of coffee with them. Great segue, right? To me taking a drink. But if you do that, that multiplier starts adding up. I mean, think about your business. How many clients do you really need in a month or in a year in order for your business to be successful? And then if you think about whatever that number is, how do you get in touch with those people? My guess, and I'm taking a wild guess here because I don't know any of your all's businesses, but my guess is somewhere between 1,250 and 2,500 is a lot more than you need in a year to be successful. So think about that multiplier of just working the people that we know and having a plan to work with those. And I'll even offer a suggestion here in just a minute. In fact, let's go there right now. We're all on LinkedIn, and if we're not, get there. All right? Get your profile filled out and start linking in with other people. Okay? One of the things that I was amazed at when I joined the chamber is how much business is done over coffee and lunch. You know, when I first started, I had this calendar that was all filled out, and my wife was asking me, well, you know, how's your days going? I said, I feel like a politician. Why is that? I said, well, I've never drank so much coffee, had so many organized lunches, had iced tea in the afternoon, and maybe gone for a beer afterwards. I said, I'm always going to the bathroom, you know? But think about that. How much business is done in a one-on-one setting? I mean, that's how we get to know who we're working with. But here's the interesting thing. We meet somebody at a networking event, and we decide, you know what? They are at least a good suspect that I'm going to follow up to see if they can be a prospect. So we're going to get together and talk. So we have this one-on-one, have a great conversation. We realize that there are some things going on that we could probably help each other out. Maybe they're not a direct client, but they could become a referral partner for us. And then what? Why do we get back together? Well, when we get back together, what do we talk about? Well, we talk about our kids. We talk about what we did over the weekend. We talk about our hobbies. Are we talking business? Are we getting referrals? Generally, we're good at doing the first one-on-one. But after that first one-on-one, what do we do? Well, here's a suggestion. Go to their LinkedIn profile and go through their contacts. Before that meeting, identify 3 people on their contact list that you are going to ask them to refer you to. And since you're setting up that appointment, ask them to go to your list of contacts and identify 3 people that they want you to introduce them to. Now, here's the interesting thing that happens at that meeting. And I know this from fact because the leads group that I'm in, we started doing this and we have seen more referrals come from it as a result of just doing this 3 and 3 thing. Because when I share who my 3 are that I would like to meet, that rings bells for the person that I'm meeting with, because that type of person in that type of business, in that type of position, well, they know somebody else in their contact that falls into that same category. And it's like, well, yeah, I can recommend those 3, but you know, I know these 3 over here too. And really what has happened is the 3 that I've asked for has turned into 6 that I get referred to, and vice versa. The other person tells me who they want to meet, and that triggers for me some similarities and some wait a minute, oh, these people could do this for you. That's what you're looking for. We oftentimes talk about who it is that we want to be referred to, but sometimes until it gets a name and a position put with it, the bell doesn't click for us, or the tumblers don't fall into place that we fully understand who their ideal referral might be. So do that. I will tell you personal experience, not all of the 6 people that either the 3 that I asked for or the 3 that they suggested will call you back, okay? They just won't. They haven't. It hasn't happened to me yet that all 6 have been able to set it up. But I have consistently gotten 2 appointments set from it, okay? And the first week that we did it, the first week that we did it, I can tell you specifically that I wrote $4,500 worth of business as a result of one of the contacts hooking me up with another contact, okay? So it was the network that led to somebody else, okay? And $4,500 is a pretty good piece, and it could lead to, over the next year or more than $100,000 worth of a business for me. So was that worth it? Absolutely it was, okay? But that's what you do on that second one-on-one and on the third one-on-one. And you continue to follow up, because guess what? As I get to know who your clients are or who your ideal recommended reference is, I'm going to come up with more. There's going to be a better reason for us to get together. And now we're actively exchanging referrals. That's the type of network that you want, okay? I had so much to say about this, I had to put it all down on paper so that I wouldn't get down a rabbit hole so far that I'd look at the clock and go, oh my gosh, you know, I've only gotten off one topic here, all right? All right. Now, we're all told that when we do our 30-second commercial that we want to communicate who our ideal referral would be, okay? But here, just real quick, who's your target market? Anybody volunteer who their target market is?
Any small business.
I love that, Pat. Any small business, okay? I hear that oftentimes, okay? And I'll share these. These are exact quotes, all right? Who is your target market? This is both HVAC, roofers, and landscapers. I've heard the answers. Anyone who owns a home. Okay, well that seems pretty logical, doesn't it? All right. Realtors, mortgage people, and inspectors. Anyone looking to buy a home. That's logical. That's their target market, right? I love this one. This was a real answer. Insurance, anyone who has a home, auto, or life. Okay. All right. All right. And along those lines, anybody who does sales would be my target market, right? Wrong. Okay. Here's the problem with that. It's too broad. It doesn't really tell me anything about who it is you're looking for. Okay? And I always have fun with this when I'm talking to people, because anybody who owns a small business, really? I sucked you into it, didn't I, Pat?
You did.
I did.
You're talking, and I'm thinking anyone that has a small business that wants to promote it, which narrows it.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So using those examples that I gave, okay, the HVAC, roofing, and landscapers, okay, I'm looking for a homeowner who has a home that was built in 2000 or older, all right, and still has their original AC and furnace or their original roof. What did I just do? I went from out here, I went poof, right here to something very specific. Now, if you were talking to that HVAC person, 3 people may have just popped into your head. That doesn't mean you're going to give them those 3 people's names and numbers. But guess what? Now you're going to go back maybe and probably talk to those people and see, hey, I met a great roofer today. I was wondering, you know, you still have the original roof on your house, don't you? Yeah, that's 15 years, you know. It's been through a lot of weather. Maybe, you know, have you been thinking, well, yeah, we have. We probably need to get I've got a great, and now I've just told you who I'm looking for, real specific. And that's where we lose it, all right? We talk about something so broad that really doesn't help us ring any bells, all right? The realtors, mortgage guys, couples who are purchasing their second home and both partners work and they're on the south end of Blue Springs. I'm getting real specific again, okay? A second home is usually going to be a larger home, so it's going to be more in the price range that I prefer to sell in as the realtor, or the mortgage prefers to write a mortgage in, all right? They've got kids, so they're getting larger. They're both working, so I've got a pretty good idea that they can get financed. And I'm focusing in the south end of Blue Springs because they're building new homes down there. I've just brought it into a very narrow scope as to who I'm looking for. All right? The insurance guy. Couples with middle school children and own their own homes with at least one car or more, and they live in Blue Springs. All right? I work in Blue Springs. I want people who have teenage kids, but they're preteens, so they aren't driving yet. So I know I'm going to get more business in probably 3 to 4 years because kids are going to be moving up. So I want to get them as my client before they get to that point. Again, I'm being very specific. And if I'm talking to someone who has middle school children, guess what? They know a bunch of other people that have middle school children. All right? That's my conduit into that market. All right? So defining who our real clients are or who our real target market is so vitally important for us. And too many times we want everybody. We want them all. Well, yes, we do, but not everybody is a good client for you. Not everybody is qualified to be your client. So you have to define who your good client is. And how do I look at that? Look at your client list. All right? You've got 2 types of clients on your list right now. You've got the client that you love to work with, that is a great client, that pays on time, that always has things prepared for you when you show up to do the work, or are always referring people to you, or always expanding their buy. And then you have the sucky client. The one who is just a pain in your tail feathers, and they're always complaining. It doesn't matter how many discounts you give them, or how many times you redo something for them, they're never happy. They're high maintenance. If you hung them with a new rope, they'd still complain. Okay? Here's what you want to learn to do. You want to grow those good customers, and you want to fire those bad customers. Well, how do I do that? I have to figure out what makes this group good and what makes this group bad beyond their complaining. Okay? And I want to find more of these that are good, and I want to fire more of these that are bad. You know, one of the greatest concepts that I heard earlier this year was the pumpkin theory. Anybody familiar with the book? All right. The pumpkin theory is one of those that every year you look at your client list and you identify the top 20% of yours. And usually the top 20% of your clients represent 80% of your revenues. And the bottom 80% of your clients represent 20% of your revenues. Start firing those. If you can't grow them up into the top 20%, start firing them. Okay? And suddenly what you do is you have a bigger client list up here that's in this 20% that are good people, and you know who those people are. You know why you're working with them. And those are the referrals that you want. That's who you want to meet from your network. And suddenly, you don't need to have 500 leads. What you need are 50 that are in that category, because those 50 are going to be more than enough for this year, for you to meet your sales goals, to meet your growth goals, and to be able to expand your business the way you want to. But knowing who that is, you got to go back to your client list. Figure out who it is on your client list today that you want to grow with for tomorrow. Okay? Now, 2 things that we're going to talk about here in the next 20 minutes. Delivering value to your network, it's real simple. All right? You have to bring value to your network. You have to do something for your network before they're going to be willing to do something for you. If I walked in here today and walked up to each one of you and said, hey, who can you refer to me today? You're probably not going to be real excited about helping me out. All right? But if I walked up to you and said, you know what? I've got a friend that lives over here in Blue Springs, and they're looking to sell their house, and they want to buy a bigger house. You'd be excited for me to give you that person's name and number, right? I brought value to her today. Okay? Now, that works out, that client actually sells a home with her and buys a new home with her. The next time she hears somebody complaining about their sales, who do you think is going to pop to the top of her mind? I would hope me. All right? Because I brought value to her. Okay? The more value you bring to your network, the better. And it goes right along with building that credibility. You'll often hear, I've got what I call 2 categories for building credibility. One is the standard suggestion, and the other one is called the non-standard suggestion. The standard suggestion for building credibility within your network is things like social media, do a blog, find out where your clients are at online, and join a group online, and participate in the discussion online to show your expertise. But where are your clients at? Are they listening to that group that you're joining? All right? And quite frankly, to have that social media discussion, you're going to have somebody different standing up in front of you today, all right, than who's here, all right? Because I'm not a social media expert, okay? So that's a completely another day, another topic, another speaker. But then the non-standard suggestions. And Laura did not pay me to say this, okay? Join a group, all right? You're obviously a part of the chamber, all right? Get involved in the chamber. Join a committee. Guys, are there committee spots open probably on every committee with the chamber? Absolutely. All right? Join a committee, because here's what happens on those committees. People get to know who you are, and they get to see you in action. They get to hear you talk about something other than your 30-second commercial. They get to see the types of things that you do for the committee. They get to see the value that you are bringing to that group. And you're not trying to close anybody. You're trying to work and do what it is the committee is endeavoring to accomplish. So whether it's a committee, a task force, or just an ad hoc group that gets together at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to talk about how do we bring more people into the chamber. I have that this afternoon. There's a group of us that are getting together this afternoon at 54th Street Grill just to talk about how do we bring more people from the chamber into our leads group, okay? Those are the types of things that create opportunities for you to build strength in your network, all right? Because the exciting thing is when you're not perceived as trying to sell your business, all right? People get to know who you are. And that is the most important part, because remember, they have to know you first, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. Those three things have to be in place, or unless you're selling oxygen and they're in a non-oxygen environment, they're not going to buy from you, okay? You got to have those three things in place, and that's the three things that you are building when you're in a committee, or you're working on an ad hoc group, or you're in a task force. And if you all are a member of this chamber, and I'm a member of the Lee Summit Chamber, but there's other groups out there other than the chamber that we can get involved in also, that give us opportunities to gain access to prospective clients, those suspects that we may need to know, and we absolutely want to know. And correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but not only are there a lot of opportunities, but we usually get to take on a lot more responsibility when we're volunteering to do something than maybe we get to take on in our normal jobs. And that gives us an opportunity to grow as well. So we're getting something without even having to to think about getting business from it. We're still growing because we're doing something we don't normally get an opportunity to do. And that helps us grow. Now, here's the other piece to it, and this is going to lead to the other groups that you may be looking at. Find your passion. Figure out what it is. Something that really lights your fire, okay? And get involved with it, okay? I've been in business for over 25 years, not my business, but I've been a business person for over 25 years. But I've also been a football coach for 23 years. Football is my passion, all right? And I joke with my wife all the time that my career has been on the downhill slide since I met her. Because I was in semi-pro coaching, and I went to college coaching, and then I had to go to high school coaching, and then I was in Pop Warner, and then I even had to help build a league in Lee Summit because we didn't have one in Lee Summit. And so now I'm back at the high school level at Lee Summit West. So at least my career is on the rebound, okay, from a coaching perspective. But get involved with something that you're passionate with, because people will see that passion. People will feel that enthusiasm, all right? And they will see your commitment level. And it's like a magnet has been turned on, because people are attracted to that. They want to be a part of that passion. They want to feel that enthusiasm, and they want to get involved in it. Well, here's the best thing is, they're getting to know you again in a non-business environment, probably. But they're getting to know you about your passion. And people are really going to the people who are attracted to that are really going to get to know you that way. They're really going to like you. And they're really going to start trusting you because they believe in what you're believing in. They were attracted to you because of your enthusiasm and your passion. All right? They want to be a part of that. People love to join passionate people. All right? Why do you think there's so many cults out there? All right? I mean, it's somebody that got really passionate and somebody wanted to have some of that passion. You know? So they got sucked into the kill zone. All right? So let's find something that drives us, and that is going to give us an opportunity then to get out there. All right? So, successful networking is pretty simple. Know your target market. Who is it specifically that you want to work with? And here's something that's going to that may shock you. It may change from month to month because you're doing something different at work. Something's happening at work that is creating a new group that you're after, or a new focus, a new target market. Let people know that. All right? Always let them know who it is that you're looking for this month or this week. It requires a plan and a strategy. You have to know why you're there at the event. You have to have a plan for working the event. You have to have the goals, build the plan, and decide how you're going to work the plan before you get there. All right? You can't walk in the door and go, what am I going to do here today? You have to walk in the door with that plan in place, knowing how you're going to work and who you're going to work with. All right? Get involved. Join a group. You're already a member of the chamber. Use that. All right? I've been a member of the chamber since April of last year, and it's the best thing that I could have done for my business. All but one client that I have is a direct result of my connection with the chamber. Okay? They're not all chamber members, but it was a chamber member that referred me to that business, with the exception of one client. All right? And bring value to all of the groups that you are a part of, to your network. Be looking for your opportunity to give, and it will come back to you tenfold. Walk into it with nothing but your goggles on about how do I get something out of this, and it'll be like you walked into the desert looking for a glass of water. All right? But when you bring something to it and you give first, it always comes back to you tenfold. Okay? Questions?
What was your business again?
Sandler Training. I own the Sandler Training Center in Lee Summit. Yep. No questions? Lisa.
You talked about LinkedIn, and we got involved in social media, or I got involved in social media because I knew I needed to. I had to. It wouldn't be if it wasn't for the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine. You talked about using LinkedIn 3 and 3. You called it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that as a thing to do now. I'm just like LinkedIn, okay, whatever. I'm there. Sometimes I visit it, but all I ever see is so-and-so is now connected to so-and-so. And then this person now has a new connection. And that's the most of what I ever see.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who bring a value to what they had an article they liked, and sometimes that's good. So would you, I mean, am I wrong here? Am I doing something wrong? I know you're not a social media expert, and you're using it in that one way, but is that the only way you use it too? I mean, are you finding the same thing? Anybody else finding the same thing?
You can be a
People are having new connections, and that's the only thing I'm ever really seeing.
Yeah, you can be a social browser, all right, and those are the type of things that you're going to get. If you go to your home page, you'll always see whoever, anybody who's posting something that's in your network, or anybody who's making new connections, you'll see that in your network, and the top 4 articles recommended for your reading based on the groups that you join and things like that, they'll be there. But if that's all you're doing, that's all you're ever going to get, all right? But of the connections that you have, Lisa, if you go into those specific, you open on somebody's profile and you scroll down to their connections and you start perusing through all of their connections. That's where you're going, that's where I'm suggesting how to use LinkedIn.
So
yes, I'm going to browse through their connections, and based on, maybe I know the person's name and the company they're with, but I don't know them, I'm going to ask for a referral to them if they're a prospect for me, all right, or a suspect for me. I'm going to sometimes look at the company that they're with and their position within the company. I may not know who they are or too much about the company, but I can research the company to find out more information to see if it's a good possibility for me. And then based on their position within the company, can they get me in the door? And then I'll ask for a referral that way.
So it's true. That's the only way you use it is for the room.
Yep, that's the way I'm using it today. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't care who's connected to whom.
Right.
Who got a new connection. I'm not looking at that unless it's somebody I want to meet.
I know a challenge with that too is I'm guilty of, I have people in my network on LinkedIn that are not really close connections.
Mm-hmm.
So at least were to come to me and say, hey, can you make an introduction? I'm like, well, I can try, but I don't really know that they're going to remember who I am.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
And so, I mean, I should maybe go through and, I hate to say weed out, eliminate people, but if someone were to come to me and say, hey, I'd really like an introduction with this person,
Yeah.
okay, I'll do my best, but
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll take my call.
You have to, you do have to weed out, because when we first opened our LinkedIn file, we started going to anybody that we knew and trying to build that number up, because they told us that if we get to 500, your business will be secure forever and a day, okay? Well, I have probably right around 300, and I've weeded out people, who I knew, I'm not going to refer anybody to somebody in Phoenix. But I have people in Phoenix that I know because I used to do business down there, okay? So, I went through and cleaned a lot of those out. But you do have to weed through, and you have to be honest with the people, okay? I mean, I've had that conversation both directions. Somebody that I asked for a referral to, them say, I know him, I met him, we're on LinkedIn, but I don't know if he would take my call. Okay, cool. Who else then do you know? So instead of getting 6 that day, I got 4. That's okay. Again, quantity is not the goal. Quality is what we are striving for. All right. So if I got 4 good referrals, I'm happy. 4 good referrals. That's gonna fill my calendar for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be looking to get those people on my calendar. Okay. So, other questions?
You said after you do your 30-second commercial to have a follow-up question and
Mm-hmm.
have some canned. What are the most successful questions that you've had?
You know what? I've had those canned questions, and probably the best, especially at an event like this, is I really don't know a whole lot about your business. I don't know a whole lot about what you do. Could you tell me what it is that you do? And again, people then usually will start spewing. You have to fight it off sometimes to ask the next question. But that's usually the best way, especially at when you're first doing that bonding and rapport and trying to build that relationship, finding out about their company. All of us have a unique story as to how we got started in what we're doing today. We went off the reservation at some point, all right, and decided to own our own business. How did we get to that point? So it's usually a pretty unique story, and you start getting that information, and then you really start learning about whether or not they might be a prospect for you. And that's where you also start building that relationship, because you're asking questions that you care about, and you're responding exactly what you're doing with me right now. You're great eye contact, you're acknowledging me by, your head nods and your nonverbal, or, mm-hms. That's great, all right? That's the type of thing, not the, yeah, uh-huh. Oh, yeah, I got you. Ooh, I got to go talk to her. Yeah, oh, that's really interesting, I mean, if I hadn't have seen that at one of our events, I would have never believed you're making that up, Well, there's some things that are so real you just can't make them up, So, other questions? Okay.
So how do you fire people?
How do I fire clients?
Clients. Not that I want to fire any members. I love you all.
Pat, at this point in time, I will hold my hand and confess to you, I can't afford to fire anybody right now, all right? But when that time comes, we're going to have a conversation about the fact that they probably need to start working with somebody else. And I'm going to provide them with a resource of who they should seek out to work with. That, my business has developed to this point, and I'm really having to focus on these, this type of a company or this type of a business, or focus on these kinds of activities, and I don't feel like I can service them the way they need to be serviced any longer, and this is who they should go see to have their services provided. And I'm going to give them a referral, and I'm going to probably even have called that person and say, hey, I'm going to refer this person to you. I will not.
Thanks a lot.
I won't tell them they suck as a client, and I'm just trying to get rid of them, okay? But I'm truly going to try to find a better fit for them, okay? And the interesting thing is, while I've not done it in the business that I'm in right now, I have done it previously, and they become your raving fan because you told them that you couldn't service them any longer. You were honest, you were upfront with them, and yet you gave them a referral to someone who you thought could. And they become your raving fan. We all need a few more fans out there.
At least to be careful. We're all coming together.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? All right, so I said a 30-second commercial, right? Can I take a 30-second commercial for my company? Okay. Well, as a Sandler trainer, I'm a member of a worldwide network of business professionals, and we all work with local companies, and we work with them to help them meet their growth objectives and to exceed their growth goals, or to help them improve what they're currently doing in their sales, their management development, and their customer service. And we do that through reinforcement training, coaching, and consulting. Typically, I work with clients that tell me things along the lines of, we've got a great sales team, but we're just not in front of enough qualified prospects, and they don't feel as if their company's growing the way that it should. Or they tell me things along the lines, we're doing a lot of bids, we're doing a lot of proposals, a lot of presentations, but the sales cycle is taking longer than we anticipated, and we really feel like we're losing customers out the back end, and ultimately all we're doing is unpaid consulting. And other times they tell me that they are closing a lot of sales, but the sales are not at the profit margin that they are accustomed to or that they expect to have, and they feel like they've simply become a commodity, and they don't know why. Other times they feel like their sales department is a turnstile. No sooner do they get a new one hired and trained that somebody else leaves, and they have to go through that process again. Now, I certainly don't know your businesses today. I'd love to sit down and learn more about them and find out if you are facing any of those challenges, or maybe some other things are going on that you would like to talk to me about. I'd love to do that. Jeff Driskell, Sandler Training, there's power in reinforcement. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much, Jeff. You're a powerful speaker in the morning. Very good job. I have a couple of announcements I would like to make. I'm passing out a survey, so if you wouldn't mind filling that out and giving Jeff some feedback, we'll spend those.
I'd love that, yeah.
Also, starting in April, we'll probably be moving our Power Hour sessions to the chamber office. That's something we're trying to work out. So between now and then, we'll post that information out on the website and in the newsletter. But we've got some technology in there that will enable us to do that. Also, the recording for this session, Jeremiah is recording it today, will be posted on the chamber website. So if you have somebody that you'd like to have in your office and show these awesome tips to, or if there are people that you know that couldn't make it today, then refer them to the chamber website, and in the member page you can see this recording again. So if you have any questions for, there's several board members in here, and Laura and Pat for us at the chamber, give us a call. We can help you out with anything you need from us. So have a good week. Thanks again.